before we even start talking about whether you should or should not have a cake matron, let's perhaps look at what does a cake matron/matron do at a wedding. So the history, if you Google the history of cake cutting and the cake matron, you'll find something very different from what we sort of think it means. So I will not focus on the historical Google version of a cake matron and cutting cake, and focus on how it's done in our African setting, or in a Kenyan setting for that matter. So in most weddings, the cake matron or cake matron comes in to sort of, and I love the way they say it, this is the first meal that you're having as a couple, which newsflash, the couple in most cases has already had the meal. I mean, we're cutting cake at say 2-3, so they already had the meal at the reception. The guests had the meal at the reception, but hey, I'm not here to correct them. I'm just here to point out. Nonetheless, so the cake cutting session serves two purposes. One is it culminates everything that has happened on the day. Traditionally we believe as soon as we've cut the cake, it's time to go home. You'll find in some weddings, especially where you've invited your guests from out of town, as soon as you cut the cake, whether the activities that are happening downstream, a lot of people will start walking out. That's when the MC will be called in to make an announcement saying, kuna basi ya kwenda mahali fulani, or there's a bus for guys going to a certain place. Let's meet or congregate at the tent or wherever it is. So the cake matron's job is to, as it says, just cut the cake. And in there lies in, a number of things that they like to talk about. So they'll talk about, how they know the couple, cake here symbolizing the unity between the two of them. And you'll hear all sorts of stories coming in about cutting the cake, and how the cake is a mixture of eggs and flour, and they can be separated and make something beautiful. And it sounds cliche, but if you sat down and just listen to the message that comes out of most of the cake matrons, it actually makes a lot of sense, because we are told that a man shall leave his mom's house, or a woman will leave their mom's house, and they'll become one. And if you think about how a cake is done, all the ingredients by themselves are not a cake, but brought together they become a cake. And you cannot separate the cake once it's been done. So there's a finality, and talking about how the wedding is everything. I mean, it's two people coming together and declaring the love and becoming one. So the cake matron generally will cut the cake, give a speech. Some of them will request the couple to do funny dances, request the MC or the DJ to play a song tailored to that session. So their job is to ensure that two things happen. One, the cake is cut, and two, the cake is distributed. Now, distribution of the cake gets a little bit complex, because there's sort of a way they do it, right? So the first is, if you'll notice in most weddings, there'll be a number of cakes. So there'll be the big cake that will serve the guests, and then there'll be smaller cakes. So the first small cake is given to the groom's parents. So the tradition is the cake matron will walk with the couple, and the couple will serve the groom's parents. And as soon as they serve the groom's parents, they'll give them the cake. Then they'll do the same to the bride's parents. They'll serve the bride's parents a piece of cake. Then they'll give the cake to the parents. Then the third cake, which is sometimes optional, is a cake that's given to the best couple. So if your best couple are married to each other, then one cake will serve them right. But if they're not married to each other, you could perhaps consider giving each a cake, or splitting the cake in half, however way you choose. So to culminate everything we've discussed, the cake matron's job is to run with the cake cutting session. How she chooses to do it is totally up to her. We just guide in terms of, the tradition of, serving cake to the parents and leaving a piece, or, a piece of cake with either side of the family.